Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to do a cartridge review on the 264 Winchester Magnum. Stay tuned. Alright, so in the late 50s, Winchester decided they were going to create some new cartridges, and they were going to base it off of the 375 Holland and Holland. Now this was the same case that Weatherby had used to create several of his cartridges, and in the next decade to come, Remington would use that same case to create some of their Magnums. Starting in 1956, they come out with their 458 Winchester Magnum, and then 2 years later they come out with the 264 Winchester Magnum and the 338 Winchester Magnum. Now these three cartridges were going to be designated to three different Model 70s. The 458 Winchester would be in their African model. The 338 Winchester Magnum would be in their Alaskan model. And the 264 Winchester Magnum would be in their Westerner. And a pre-64 Model 70 Westerner and 264 Win Mag, even to this day, will fetch a great price. And as would probably seem obvious, the reason they chose Westerner is just big, wide open spaces. You want a cartridge that's flatter shooting and really going fast. A lot of people adopted this cartridge fairly quickly. It was great for deer, for antelope, and for elk, especially out in the West. Now, all in all, it was accepted pretty well. A lot of hunters really liked the cartridge. One con that seemed to be out in the public's view was that it was a barrel burner, and it wouldn't take long at all till the barrel was just completely cooked out. Now, if you compare the 264 Win Mag to, say, a modern day cartridge like the 6.5 PRC, their barrel life should be very similar. And while the 264 is definitely an overbore cartridge and will not have a long barrel life, I would say it was definitely an exaggeration to say it was just an immediate barrel burner. As with all rifles, if you take care of it and you don't go to the range and just continually shoot and get the barrel super hot, it's going to last a long time. Especially with the 264 Winchester Magnum being a hunting cartridge, it could take a lot of animals and really last many generations before it was burned out. Now in 1962, Remington came out with their new rifle, the 700, and their new cartridge, the 7mm Remington Magnum. And as I said before, they took the same philosophy, same parent case, and basically duplicated what the 264 had done from Winchester, but had it in a 7mm and called it the 7mm Remington Magnum. Now this new rifle was very popular. This new cartridge was very popular. It was, I would say, marketed much better than the 264 Win Mag. And while at that time, neither the 7mm or the 6.5 caliber were very popular in America, the 6.5 was even less popular. And of course, this is not the case in the rest of the world. The 6.5 Sweet had been around a long time and had really been a very popular hunting cartridge in Europe and other countries. But in America, not so much. But whether it be the performance, the marketing, or just the culture of America, whatever the reason, the 7mm Remington Magnum performed much better and slowly kind of put the 264 out of business. But it's really amazing when you compare the two cartridges that they're not that different. And in their design, of course, they're extremely similar, and both are excellent performers. Let's take a minute and kind of compare those two cartridges as well as the 6.5 PRC. All right, so one comparison we should definitely look at is the 264 Win Mag up against the 7mm Remington Magnum. Very similar cartridge, comes from the same parent case, basically just a different caliber. Now, because they're different calibers, it's kind of hard to compare them, but we're going to compare a 140 grain bullet in both. Now, of course, the BC is going to be higher on the 6.5 or the 264 because it's just simply the same weight bullet at a different caliber. So you have BCs from basically 490 up to 625 on the 264, and then 434 to 489 on the 7 Mag. Once again, not a fair comparison as far as BC goes. 264 will get that 140 class bullet out to about 3085, and it's going to be should be much faster on 7 Mag. Let's see. Yeah, 3340. Now that's expected. It's the same weight bullet in a bigger caliber with the same amount of powder. It's always going to go faster. But then the BC will be much better with the 264, and therefore it will retain its energy better at longer ranges, buck the wind a little better, so on and so forth. Let's try to do a comparison where the BC is the same. All right, 168 grain bullet in a 7mm is about the same BC as the 140 class in the 264. So, speed, what do you know? 3047, 3085. Let's try to get a like powder here. Check this out. Reloader 22, 64 grains, 2928. Reloader 22, 59 grains, 2929. So a similar BC bullet with just a little bit less powder basically is going to go the same speed in the 264 versus the 7 Rem Mag. For all intents and purposes, they're kind of the same thing, gonna do the same thing. You just can't shoot the heavier bullets in the 264. However, it's going to be more suited to shooting the lighter weight bullets better, I would say, than the 7 Mag. 264 will have lighter recoil, of course, with those lighter bullets. So it's really just a trade-off depending on what you want. Are you focused on more lighter weight bullets with less recoil? Are you focused on heavier bullets with more recoil? It's just simply what you want to do. The populace pretty much went with the 7 Mag. However, 264 Win Mag is right there with it. Pretty much the same thing. All right, so what about some comparisons with the same caliber? So Nosler is going to be just a little stouter than that 264 Win Mag. The 264 Win Mag basically is about the same performance as the 6.5 PRC. And both are going to be just a little bit shy of that 26 Nosler. But let's compare it to the 6.5 PRC. Once again, 140 grain bullet, almost 3,100 feet per second. 6.5 PRC, 140 grain bullet, about the same. Before you think the PRC edged it out though, look at the barrel, 26-inch barrel versus 24-inch barrel. So that tells you the difference right there. PRC and the 264 Win Mag are about the same. Now the 264 Win Mag is generally going to have a 1 in 9 twist, the 6.5 PRC a 1 in 8. So if you're shooting like the 152, 156 grain bullets, it might be a little much for the Win Mag, but it'll be fine in the PRC. Now there's two ways to look at this. You could say, well, why not just get a PRC? It's more available, more common. And I wouldn't say you're wrong, but here's the other thing. The 264 Win Mag was doing what the PRC is doing back in 1959. All right, so if you take this cartridge made in the late 50s from Winchester, and you compare it to some other 6.5 cartridges, like the Swede, the Creed, or the 260, it trounces them as far as velocity goes. It's faster than the 6.5 284. And it's going to be right there with the 6.5 PRC. And yet it was designed back in the 50s. If you like the 7mm Remington Magnum, you will like the 264 Remington Magnum. You're getting a very similar package. In fact, you could say that the 7 Rem Mag was kind of a copy or a take on the 264 Win Mag. Now, I personally have never owned one, though my uncle owned one for a long time. He killed a ton of white-tailed deer with it. And I even know that he let some people borrow that rifle, and they killed a lot of deer with it. In fact, it was a deer slayer. It could have been a little much for the deer around here, but I mean, it would drop them, and drop them in a hurry. Most of your common bullet weights would be around 120 to 140. With that 1 in 9 twist, 140, it's going to shoot just fine. You get above 140, it may have a little trouble. But there's a lot of bullets, like the 125 partition, that have been around a long time, that really did great in the 264 Win Mag. And you can go down, you can get down there in the 90s if you want. You can get some really fast varmint type bullets for that 264 Win Mag if you like. If you live in an area where you are going to have long shots and you want a flat shooting, fast shooting cartridge, similar to a 270 but with a little bit more gas, a 264 Win Mag might just be the ticket. It would be great for mule deer, for antelope and several other animals like that. The 264 Win Mag is a definitely adequate cartridge for elk. It can do the job, and even at some distance it could do the job, as long as you have the proper bullet that's constructed properly and have the right placement. It can definitely be a good and adequate elk cartridge. Of course, it would be great in Africa with plains game or many other parts of the world. It's just an all-around excellent hunting cartridge. Now, for today in 2023, is it available? Is it common? Not really. It is produced in Christensen Arms, Browning, and Winchester, but not in a lot of other companies. It is a great cartridge, but it's not going to be extremely common. And I do know of 3 or 4 ammo manufacturers that make factory ammo for it, but once again, not the most common or prolific caliber or cartridge out there. If you like cartridges with similar performance to a 257 Weatherby, a 7mm Remington Magnum, a 270, 280, 280 Ackley improved, that type of cartridge, you'll definitely like the 264 Winchester Magnum. It fits right in there. I remember as a kid when I would first begin to learn about cartridges, and I would kind of base my initial reaction or my initial impression off the name of the cartridge, and it didn't take me long to realize that was a bad idea. For instance, if you just think of a 260 and a 264, you might think that they're similar, which in reality they're not similar at all. 264 has a lot more power. But I remember thinking that the 308 was more powerful, than the 264, when in reality, of course, it's not. The naming convention that companies go with really means nothing. But for those of you who have not been around that cartridge and have not really grown up with it, just be aware it hits way above what it sounds like, as the name Magnum implies. If you have experience with the cartridge, I know it's killed countless animals throughout the world, especially in North America. I'd love to hear about it in the comments. Please tell me your stories. I'd like to know the rifle you have or have known of that somebody had, and the hunts that they took it on, the animals that they killed. If you don't like the cartridge, go ahead and leave it in the comments. I'd like to hear about that too. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video. If you have, give it a thumbs up. And if you like this type of content, please subscribe. More videos like this are coming out. And I hope you have a great day. And until next time, take care.